turned out to be the only reason your child survived. That's exactly what if he told you that the thing you feared most that happened to one father who learned the hardest possible lesson about trust, instinct, and the split-second decisions. Before we dive in, smash that like button and subscribe, because this story will absolutely leave you speechless. Picture this, an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. The sun streaming through the windows, there's a gentle breeze coming through the patio doors, and everything feels perfectly safe. That's when tragedy strikes, isn't it? When you're least expecting it. When your guard's down for just one moment. Jared couldn't sit still. Never could, really. Whilst his wife Nia so peace in quiet afternoons, he saw danger lurking in every corner. Call it paranoia, call it fatherly instinct, whatever label you stick on it, the man was constantly on edge, and honestly, he had every right to be. Their son, little Theo, had just turned 8 months old. That magical age where babies start exploring everything, crawling about, grabbing whatever catches their eye. 1 minute they're in front of you, the next they've somehow made it halfway across the room. Quick little things, aren't they? Now, Jared had been banging on about the patio door for weeks. Keep it locked, Nia. Seriously, keep it locked. But you know how it goes. One person's caution is another person's overreaction. Nia would roll her eyes, insist he was being dramatic. He's only a baby, laugh. You're worrying over nothing. Except it wasn't nothing. That afternoon, Jared was planted in front of his laptop, headphones on, trapped in yet another mind-numbing video call about shipment delays. The kind of meeting that makes your soul want to escape through your ears. His attention kept drifting to the playmat where Theo sat, dressed in this bright lime green onesie with a pale blue chap. Proper little sunshine, he was. But here's where things get interesting. Beside Jared sat Sunny, their golden retriever. Beautiful dog, massive sing, all golden fur and soft eyes. And Jared, he absolutely didn't trust him. Not one bit. Too big, he'd mutter to Nia constantly. One wrong move and he could hurt Theo. Dogs that size don't belong around babies. Sunny seemed to sense this distrust too. The poor thing would lower his ears whenever Jared raised his voice, keeping a respectful distance from the baby whilst never quite taking his eyes off him. Strange behavior that, almost like Sunny knew something Jared didn't. In the kitchen, Nia busied herself warming up a bottle. The fridge hummed, the tap ran. Normal household sounds that mask everything else happening around you. And Theo? Well, Theo had spotted something fascinating. A bright rattle had somehow rolled across the floor, heading straight towards the gap in the patio door. That door someone had left slightly ajar. Tiny hands slapped against the tiles as Theo pushed himself forward, crawling with the determined focus only babies have. Closer to the door, closer to the sunshine, closer to the pool just beyond. Then it happened. No more dramatic music, no more warning signs, no more chance for anyone to react. Theo reached for the rattle, his little body tipped forward, and he simply disappeared beneath the water's surface. The sound? Barely a ripple, just a soft, quiet plop that got swallowed up by the stillness of the pool. And then nothing, absolute silence. Theo's small body sank, arms jerking once before going limp. That little blue chap tilted off his head, drifting like a ghost through the water. His limbs tried to move, but water's heavy, isn't it? It pins you down, steals your strength, fills your lungs before you can even understand what's happening. 8 months old, can't swim, can't shout, can't save himself. But someone saw. Sunny's entire body went rigid. A low growl built in his throat, then exploded into frantic, high-pitched barking. He lunged at the glass door, claws screeching against the surface, desperate to get through. Quiet. Jared snapped, pressing his headphones tighter. Not now, Sunny. I'm working. But Sunny didn't stop. Couldn't stop. He barked again, louder this time, then shoved himself through the gap in the door and bolted. That's when Jared looked up. What the hell is that dad doing? He turned towards the window. His eyes tracked Sunny's movement, watching as the retriever launched himself into the pool with a massive splash. Confusion first. Then his gaze dropped lower, beneath the waterline, and his entire world shattered. Sir, lying face down on the poly tiles at the bottom of the pool, was a tiny figure in lime green. His son, his baby boy. The human brain does funny things in moments of crisis. Sometimes it just refuses to accept what it's seeing. No more, Jared's mind screamed. That's not real. That can't be happening. Not Theo. Not my Theo. But it was. Underwater, Sunny was already moving. Golden fur streaming through the blue like fire. He dove down, shoving his nose under Theo's chest, trying desperately to flip him over. When that didn't work, he clamped his jaws around the soaked fabric and he pulled with everything he had. Theo! The name tore from Jared's throat like broken glass. His headset clattered to the floor. He stumbled towards the door, ripping it wider. Nia, get out here now. Tiny bubbles escaped from Theo's lips, floating upward like fading prayers. His body stayed completely limp, but Sunny wouldn't let go. He thrashed, paddled, jerked his head, refusing to give up. Jared kicked off his shoes and vaulted into the pool. The cold water hit like a physical blow, but he didn't feel it. Couldn't feel anything except pure terror. His arms chewed through the water, reaching for that small green bundle. Hold him, Sunny. Just hold him up. The duck pushed harder, muzzle pressed the fabric, fighting gravity in the water until finally, Jared's hands closed around his son. He yanked Theo close and he surged upward, breaking the surface with a desperate gasp. Theo, baby, breathe. Come on, breathe. He staggered to the steps, water streaming down his face, mixing with tears he didn't know he was crying. He hauled Theo onto the stone deck, laying him flat. The Onissi clung to the baby's chest, completely soaked through. Theo's lips had gone pale. His eyes were barely open, just thin slits of blue showing through. No more, no more, no more. Jared's voice cracked. He slapped the tile with his palm, as if the sound could somehow wake his son. Come on, son. Don't do this to me. That's when Nia burst through the door, bottle in hand. It slipped from her fingers, shattered against the stone, milk splashing across the wet deck. Her scream chewed through the air like a knife. Jared, what happened? He's not breathing. Those 3 words. The worst 3 words any parent can say. Jared pinched Theo's nose, sealed his lips over the baby's mouth, tried to blow air into those tiny lungs. Nothing. He pressed again, started chest compressions with trembling fingers. His hands looked massive against Theo's small body. Script, you won't believe what happened when this dad was dragged into court. Picture this. A courtroom packed with people, all eyes fixed on the back row. But they're not staring at some hardened criminal or a corrupt politician. No more. They're looking at a dog, a German shepherd to be precise, sitting there in handcuffs, as if he just robbed a bank or something. Absolutely mental, right? But this isn't some bizarre joke. This actually happened. And what unfolded next? Well, it changed everything. The atmosphere in that courtroom was thick with tension. Proper and comfortable, you know? The judge kept shifting in his seat, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Whispers rippled through the crowd like waves. People were confused, shocked, maybe even a bit scared. Andy Reitzer in the front row sat a little girl, couldn't have been more than 10 years old. Her tiny hands were gripping the edge of her seat so hard her knuckles had gone completely white. She was terrified, absolutely petrified. But here's the thing about this kid. Deep in her heart, beneath all that fear, she held onto something powerful. A certainty, a conviction that nobody else in that room seemed to share. She knew, without a shadow of doubt, that Buddy, the dog sitting in chains behind her, was innocent. Not just innocent, actually. He was a hero. Now, before we dive deeper into this absolutely bonkers story, I've got to ask, are you enjoying this? If you are, do you us a favor and hit that like button? Would you? And drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Seriously, I love seeing how far these stories reach. Are you in London, Manchester? Maybe you're halfway across the world? Let us know. Right, back to the story. So how did we end up here? How does a dog end up on trial? For crying out loud? Well, it all started with a neighbor. Always the neighbors, isn't it? This bloke had marched into the police station, then straight into court, making the most outrageous claims. He was accusing Buddy, a retired police dad, mind you, of attacking him completely unprovoked. Just beat him out of nowhere, he sighed. Ruined his life, apparently. The man stood there in that courtroom, waving his bandaged arm around like some sort of trophy. My life is over, he bellowed. Look at what that beast did to me. I'm scarred. I'm destroyed. My future's gone. Proper dramatic. He was. Oscar-worthy performance. Really. The jury sat there, stone-faced, taking it all in. Andy the prosecutor? Blimey. He was having a field day. painted Budi as this vicious, dangerous animal that had no more business being anywhere near civilized society. Used words like manas and the threat to public safety. He was convincing too. You have to give him that. One by one, you could see the jury members nodding along, buying into the narrative. Everyone in that room seemed to believe this neighbor's story. Every single person, except one, Emily. Emily wasn't some random spectator. She'd grown up with Budi. He'd been part of her life for as long as she could remember. He wasn't just a family pet or some guard that they kept in the garden. He was so much more than that. He was her protector, her confidant, her constant companion, her shadow, really. Wherever Emily went, Budi followed. They were inseparable. She remembered countless nights when thunderstorms would roll in, proper frightening ones that rattled the windows and made the whole house shake. While Emily's parents slept soundly down the hall, Budi would curl up right beside her bed, his warm presence keeping the fear at bay. She remembered the time she came off her bike going down that steep hill near their house, scraped her knees right up. She did. Sat there in the driveway crying her eyes out. Before her mom or dad even realized what had happened, before they'd even looked out the window, Budi was there, licking away her tears, nuzzling against her, making everything feel just a bit better. This was the kind of dad who would throw himself in front of a car to protect someone. The kind of dad who'd rather take his last breath than harm an innocent person. Emily knew this in her bones, so when that neighbor stood there spinning his lies, when the prosecutor painted Budi as some sort of monster, she felt something rising inside her. Not just sadness, though there was plenty of that. The thought of losing Budi was absolutely unbearable, but more than that, she felt anger, righteous burning anger, because she knew that man was lying through his teeth. And here's the kicker. She had proof. The problem was, nobody had bothered to ask her opinion. Why would they? She was just a kid. What could a 10-year-old possibly contribute to a serious legal case like this? Adults don't tend to take children seriously in these situations, do they? They assume kids don't understand, don't notice things, can't be trusted with important matters. But that's where adults get it wrong. Kids see everything. They notice things that grown-ups are too busy or too distracted to spot. And Emily, she'd noticed absolutely everything. Let's rewind to the night this supposedly horrific attack took place. Emily should have been fast asleep, but she wasn't. She was doing what loads of kids do, riding under her blanket with a torch, trying to finish just one more chapter before sleep took over. Then she heard it, Budi barking outside. But this wasn't his normal bark, not the playful, excited sound he made when someone walked past with another dog. This was different, sharp, urgent, almost desperate. The kind of bark that says, something's wrong here. Pay attention. Emily's curiosity got the better of her. She crept over to her window and peeked through the curtains. What she saw made her blood run cold. That neighbor, the one who was now claiming to be a victim, was creeping around the property. And he wasn't out for an evening stroll, was he? No more. He was at their shed, trying to break in, attempting to nick her dad's expensive tools. Proper thief, he was. Now here's where it gets interesting. Budi had spotted him too, obviously. But contrary to what this neighbor would later claim in court, Budi didn't attack. He didn't go for the man's throat or sink his teeth into flesh. What he did was grab the bloke by his sleeve. Just his sleeve. Budi was a trained police dog. Remember, he knew exactly what he was doing. He was apprehending a criminal, stopping him from legging it with stolen goods. That's what he'd been trained to do for years. And those bite marks the neighbor kept banging on about? Complete fabrication. What actually happened was the man, in his panic at being caught, stumbled backwards and fell against the shed door. The old door that Emily's dad had been meaning to fix for months. The one with the broken, splintered wood and rusty bits sticking out. That's what scraped up his arm, not Budi's teeth. The man had essentially injured himself whilst attempting to commit a crime. Brilliant, really. Emily had witnessed the entire thing from her window, every single second of it. But here's the absolute best part. She had something nobody else in that courtroom knew existed. Evidence. Hard, undeniable evidence. You see, Budi used to wear this special vest during his police work. Attached to it was a small camera, standard equipment for police dogs. When Budi retired and came to live with Emily's family permanently, her dad had kept the vest as a memento. And Emily, bless her, Thought it would be fun to put it on Buddy a few weeks before all this kicked off. Just for a laugh, really. She hadn't told anyone, hadn't thought it mattered, but that camera was still functional. And on the night of the incident, it was recording. So they were, in that courtroom. The prosecutor was wrapping up his argument, practically demanding that Buddy be put down. The jury looked convinced. The neighbor sat there with this smug expression, thinking he'd won. Andy the judge was about to make his decision. That's when Emily's small voice chewed through the silence. "I'd like to speak, please." The entire courtroom turned. Every head swifted to look at this tiny girl in the front row. You could have heard a pin drop. The prosecutor actually laughed. Properly laughed at her. "Sweetheart," he sighed, in that condescending tone adults use when they're about to dismiss a child, "this isn't story time. This is a court of law. Sit down." But Emily didn't sit down. Her hands were shaking, her voice was wavering, but her eyes, they were locked on the judge, steady and determined. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a tiny memory card, held it up for everyone to see. "You have proof?" she sighed, louder this time. But he didn't attack anyone. He stopped a thief. "He can show you, right now." The silence that followed was deafening. The judge leaned forward in his chair, peering down at this brave little girl who refused to let an injustice stand. "Bring it here," he sighed quietly. What happened next was like something out of a film. Honestly, they loaded the footage onto the courtroom's display system, that massive screen that everyone could see. And then they pressed play. The video began. Clear as day, there was the neighbor, skulking around in the darkness, approaching the shed with obvious ill intent. There was Buddy, responding exactly as he'd been trained to, grabbing the man's sleeve to prevent his escape. And sir, absolutely crystal clear, was the moment the man lost his balance and scraped himself on the broken door. The jury's reaction was immediate. Gasps echoed around the room. Mouths fell open. Several jury members leaned forward, eyes wide with shock, because there it was. Irrefutable proof. Not once in that video did Buddy show aggression. Not once did he bare his teeth violently. Not once did he attack. He simply did his job, protected his family's property from a criminal. The neighbor's face drained of all color. Went absolutely white. He did. His lies were unraveling in real time, in front of everyone. He tried to speak, to make excuses, but no more words came out. What could he possibly say? The evidence was right, sir. The judge grabbed his gavel and he brought it down with a resounding crack. "Case dismissed," he announced, his voice firm and clear. "This Doug is no more criminal. He's a hero. This man, however, will be facing charges for theft, trespassing, and perjury." The courtroom absolutely erupted. Applause broke out. People were standing, cheering, some even crying. Emily didn't hear any of it. She was already running. She practically flew to the back of the courtroom where Buddy sat. She threw her arms around his neck, burying her face in his fur. And Buddy, his tail was going mental, wagging so hard his whole back end was moving. His ears perked up, that gorgeous happy expression dogs get spreading across his face. It was light, he understood. Justice had been served. From that day forward, everything changed. Buddy wasn't just Emily's best friend anymore, though he absolutely still was that. He became something more, a symbol, a reminder to the entire town that truth matters, that justice is worth fighting for, and that sometimes the right thing to do is stand up and speak, even when you're scared, even when nobody's asking for your opinion, even when you're just a kid. Word spread fast in the community. The story made the local papers, then the national news. People from all over sent letters to Emily, praising her courage. Buddy received honorary mentions from police departments. They even erected a small plaque in the town square commemorating what everyone now called the trial of the century. But for Emily, none of that really mattered. What mattered was that Buddy was home, safe, where he belonged. What mattered was that she'd found her voice when it counted most. She'd learned something crucial that day, something that would stick with her for the rest of her life. The smallest voices can carry the biggest truths. Size doesn't determine value. Age doesn't determine wisdom. Sometimes a little girl and her dog can take on the entire world and win. And do you know what? That's a lesson we could all benefit from remembering. How many times do we dismiss someone because they're young? How often do we ignore a perspective because it comes from an unexpected source? How frequently do we let injustice slide because speaking up feels too hard, too scary, too risky. Emily didn't have power, wealth, or authority. She was just a kid with a dad she loved and the evidence of the truth. But that was enough. More than enough. Because at the end of the day, truth is truth. Right is right. And the justice, real justice, doesn't care about age or status. It only cares about what actually happened. So here's my challenge to you. Be like Emily. When you see something wrong, speak up. When you have evidence of truth, share it. When someone or something you love is being wronged, stand up and fight back. Even if your hands are shaking, even if your voice wavers, even if nobody's asking for your input, the world needs more people willing to be brave when it matters most. This story has touched millions of hearts across the globe. If it's touched yours, let us know. Smash that like button. Drop a comment. Just say yes or tell us what you thought. And please, subscribe or follow for more incredible stories just like this one. These tales of courage, of justice, of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, they deserve to be shared. They deserve to be heard. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, sometimes the smallest among us are capable of the greatest things.